Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. I got it. Sorting out all these things back in. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Everything's all right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I am coming to you from Underworld North Studio here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As always, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
I am doing good. It is warm down here again, but it's okay weather.
Yeah, there we go. It is pretty warm. I guess I only spent like half an hour outside today, so what can you do? Anyway, this week, season 1, we hope, of The Acolyte wrapped up with a thrilling and satisfying final episode. We break down its revelations, expected and unexpected turns. Of course, those exciting cameos sprinkled in. And do that, we do have a guest. We do have a guest. We're going to bring her on and hope her audio works. It's Ashley Baker, coming from a little small town formerly known as New Amsterdam, I believe used to be called.
Yeah, totally.
There we go. How you doing this week? How's it going? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, and nice to meet you, Joel.
Hello.
And yeah, excited and happy to be here from my bedroom.
There we go. Yeah, that's pretty good. You got your apartment going there. So yeah, good to have you on. I think your audio is kind of choppy in and out, so maybe we'll sort that out. There we go. Anyways, so yeah, we'll get the plugs first off. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Mainly Twitter at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Of course, the Star Wars Underworld Facebook page, and all their socials. Usually we go live on Twitter, but the bots just don't want to join us. So there we go.
Anyways, I don't know why that's going on.
I think it's the StreamYards thing. I think it's
okay.
StreamYards wide. I know a buddy of mine who has a Toronto FC podcast. He also said same issue. So
okay, good. It's not just me.
It's not just us. Yes, here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, we have YouTube memberships. We have super chats. So please do support the channel and support the network. If you do a comment and it fits with the flow of the conversation, I say this every time, fits with the flow of the conversation, then we will do our best to get to it. If you super chat us, it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit the flow of the conversation. We'll just bump you right up to the top of the pile for the comment and respond to it as best we can. Do our best. So appreciate any support you all can give to the channel if you can, if you like. Speaking of the channel, speaking of the network, Star Wars Underworld Discord server. We got chatting about the Acolyte, about Star Trek, about soccer, believe it or not, about a whole bunch of things. So yeah, check that out. The link in the description below will get you in. Please be friendly, please be kind. If not, we know how to deal with that. But Joel, you're in there. Joel, if you go to the Discord server, ask Joel what his favorite second favorite episode of She-Ra is. Second favorite episode.
Second favorite. Ooh, that would be a hard question.
There we go.
I will think hard about it.
I have to think about that. Speaking of Discord, things happening in Discord server. What's going on?
Oh yes. This week, due to work having no schedule for me, we will be having a special game night, and we are going to be playing whatever we want to play. So that decision will be made on the night of. So it could be Outlaws, could be Fortnite, could be Overwatch, could be Fall Guys, could be anything. But we will have a game night Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern.
There you go. And it won't be Young Giant Adventures, which is okay. You can keep that along rolling.
But by the way, speaking of which, we did watch that last week, and we went to Starlight Beacon. So Starlight Beacon on screen before it went kablooey.
Oh yeah, that. Spoiler alert for the end of season 1 of the High Republic. Yeah. Fallen Star, a novel called Fallen Star. Wonder what that's about. Last plug, before I'm actually going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to put you on the spot, but last plug before we do that. Usually Tractor Beam Comics reviews right here on the Underworld YouTube channel and everywhere you get your video podcasts, Twitch, usually Twitter, I guess, maybe not. Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Comic books that come out that day. Wednesdays for comics. Comics are for Wednesdays. Chris Abbott and I give him the old review on the Tractor Beam. But except for this week, because Chris is Joel. He's closer to where you are right now. He's going to San Diego Comic-Con. Lucky guy. Gonna play Outlaws. Gonna learn about all the comics news that we are going to talk about in a few minutes. But so we're gonna take a break from that this week, and then next week pick it up. Probably go solo on that one, and then see if Chris wants to come back around. The week later, also just a bit of programming note. I'm taking a break for my on Canon all through August. Just gonna get some rest on my Monday nights, so you can miss this mug right here. But Joel, you've got some guests lined up
At least for the first 2 weeks of August.
For the first weeks of August. There we go. Okay, speaking of guests, Ash, by the way, again, good to see you, my friend. Good to see the Pikachu in the background there. We don't usually get cosplayers on. I mean, I guess we have a few here and there, but of course, in our thumbnail, we featured your Ahsoka Tan cosplay with the Mandalorian armor. And if I'm not mistaken, you made that all yourself, right? Or you've made a bunch.
Did.
There we go. So I'll just put you on the spot. How did you get into cosplay, and how did the Ahsoka Tan come about?
Yeah, so I think I ultimately got into cosplay because when I was a kid, my mom would sew my Halloween costumes, like since I was a little kid. And so then when I learned how to do that, so actually when I was like 5, I think the first one I ever sewed myself was a Hobbit costume, because we had a little like door that went to a weird like attic thing, and I called that my Hobbit hole, and I would wear my little Hobbit thing that I made and sewed in there. So I have been doing that for like, I don't know, it's sadly going to be almost 20 years if we count those young child adventures. So that's yeah, it's a little crazy. But ultimately got to Ahsoka Tan, obviously all these years later, just because I always wanted to do a Mando, but obviously I have a minor obsession with Ahsoka. So, I thought, especially after season 7 of Clone Wars came out, I was like, I want to blend these together, because initially I was like, oh, I'm going to do a Mandalorian, and then somehow I was just like, hey, I gotta jump in and do something a little more creative, because usually I am not coming up with my own ideas per se. Obviously just trying to follow whatever the costume is to a T. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun to get to actually kind of design something for myself. So it's Bo-Katan based Ahsoka colors.
There you go. I don't think I've actually seen it in person. Just had. So I hopefully you're willing to break that out in October again. No pressure.
Yeah, totally.
We'll say if anyone see my personal Instagram, I think I put it on like the 332nd, like it's the Ahsoka clone unit, whatever number that is, that helmet. And I think I tried it on. You made that yourself. I
did. Yes, I did.
That's also impressive. Like how long does it usually take you to make at least a helmet?
So I 3D print them. So the 3D print can take like 48 hours. And it also depends on how many pieces, but I try to do helmets in one piece, even though it's a risk. And so that's about a 48-hour print. And then sanding, which I hate, is more than 48 hours for sure. There's a lot of that like finishing to get rid of the print lines and stuff like that takes forever. And then painting, the fun part, always takes the least amount of time. So that's only a couple hours. Yeah.
That's good. And it's definitely the most visible and exposed part too.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Totally.
So yeah, well, let me pick up your plugs, but Instagram, def.theonlyashley. You can see, I think it's the link in the description below. Check out all our cosplays. That level of dedication, from what I know about you, that level of dedication is on brand. So
well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So moving a bit along, we do have a bit of comics news, and I'll get to because we're going back to the aftermath. This is a bit of a surprise, slightly. Just the other day, Marvel and Star Wars released this image, the future of Star Wars comics, the next phase, next era, and it's the charred Vader mask from The Force Awakens. And okay, we're going forward. I thought we were going back. We're going forward. And then just was it today, Marvel.com.
I did. I called it.
Yeah, you did. You did. A lot of people did. Marvel.com just today announced. Get that out of the way. Announced put this article. I forgot to bring this up. I'll bring it up in a second. The cover. Marvel.com saying this whole article about what this is about now. Earlier this month, it was announced Marvel's Star Wars comic line would be concluding, I'm quoting here, with its post-Empire Strikes Back storytelling this September with Star Wars number 50 and Darth Vader number 50, so ongoing 50 and Vader number 50. Fans won't have to wait long to discover what comes next, as this October, a new post-Return of the Jedi era begins in Star Wars Battle of Jakku Insurgency Rising, written by acclaimed award-winning author Alex Segura, who wrote, of course, the novel Poe Dameron Freefall. He wrote the Return of the Jedi Rebellion one-shot featuring Poe Dameron's parents. And he also wrote Edge of Spider-Verse and a bunch of comics for Marvel. So he was only written one Star Wars novel, but he's definitely written a whole bunch of comics elsewhere, and drawn by a trio of superstar artistic talent, really, truly. Leonard Kirk, Stefano Raffaele, and Jethro Morales. So Battle of Jakku Insurgency Rising will be the first of 3 limited series centered around the never before told final moments of the Galactic Civil War. Never before told. That's key phrase there. I will try and bring up. I forgot to add this to the thing. We're firing on all cylinders today. I apologize for this. I totally meant to. I'm gonna do it quickly. Here we go. Here is the cover for issue number 1. If it decides to pop up, there we go. That is the cover for issue number 1 by Mr. Philip Noto. The very iconic. Although I will say it looks distinct enough from Noto covers. Just having the different characters, the way the shading and different things usually is kind of one size fits all there, but that's okay. This will be number 1 that comes out October 2nd, and it looks like the whole issue. So it'll be 12-issue maxi series called The Battle of Jakku. Insurgency Rising looks like it'll be the first arc, and maybe there'll be a gap between arcs because, assuming the trains run on time, this issue number 1 will come out October 2nd, October 16th when I'm in New York, October 30th, and then November 6th. So that's shorter time. Usually, of course, they come out once a month. Here, they're coming out roughly every 2 weeks or so, and then between issues 3 and 4 come out a week apart. If I'm doing the math right. So yeah, that's issue number 1 there. Again, I appreciate the Phil Noto, usually a very distinctive style, iconic style, but this looks a little different with some different characters in the background there. Also, I got 2 thoughts on this one. First off, good to know what we're doing. I have a few thoughts, I guess. Good to know what we're doing. Good to know where we're going with the comic books, and just see. Okay, yeah, we're filling in this year gap. I did have a thought of that a number of years ago, when in the middle of the Charles Soule ongoing run that's currently just wrapping up. What are we gonna get Luke's story in that year between Endor and Jakku? And looks like we are getting Luke's story. We're getting more of Leia's story. We're getting these new villains. Seems almost like, again, everything is ultimately having the first quasi new villains. I guess, yeah, he comes from somewhere else too. Everything, of course, has the First Order in view eventually. Even the Aftermath trilogy, and I'll get to that in a second, was Road to the Force Awakens, and so this is still going to probably set a few things up, but also the Battle of Jakku, the Galactic Concordance, issue number 2. It features Leia and Mon Mothma. So it's exciting, especially hearing more of Luke's story. We haven't gotten anything of him. We've only got a little bit of Leia. We've gotten Han and Chewie. And that gets to me. My second point is, what are they doing with Chuck Wendig and what's happening with the Aftermath trilogy and the story there? It said never before told final moments of the Galactic Civil War. And look, I know people have issues with with Wendig's writing. Some people have issues with Wendig's use of Twitter. um, being political. Turned out he was kind of right. Turned out we could have heeded his warnings a little bit in some things, not everything. He was probably a little too combative. And probably couldn't read the room either. But uh, Life, Debt, and Empire's End are fantastic novels, and they are paper canon. So there is going to be this synergy. Still needs to be the synergy and harmony of continuity here. But it seems like they're having like this another trilogy within the story. Of course, there's also the Alphabet Squadron trilogy that is also kind of dancing around it. But
and Squadrons.
In Squadrons. But yeah, I mean, that has a little bit also the Battle of Jakku, and of course Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2. But mainly, my main thing is the Aftermath trilogy. It seems like this is sort of this inevitable sort of, we're just gonna shuffle that off into the corner, pretend it's not as important. And that's just how it seems to me a little bit. And
yeah, I didn't read that way.
Let me finish my thought first. It seems that way a little bit to me. It seems like, okay. I mean, they're probably not gonna collide, but those novels were a big deal in those first few years, and then they were kind of lampooned. I get why the first one was a little bit, but I also, this is just going on a bit of a tangent here, but I wonder if those novels were a victim of unmet expectations, or a victim of confused expectations, if you will, in that people were almost wanted. I went in wanting more of a history book, like what's the whole 20-year history, or wanting to know, what was Luke's story, what was Leia's story, and we've gotten also a bit of like Han and Leia with their wedding and their honeymoon on the Galactic Star Cruiser. I'm just curious to see. I guess the question is, how does this interact? How does as fans, do we kind of relate and respond? Because I mean, now I'm a fan of the Wexleys. I'm a fan of Nora and how she's gotten to know Wedge. I mean, we're 9 years on, so they've grown on us. So yeah, it just, maybe I'm reading too much into this, Joel. You probably think I'm reading too much into this, but
yes, you are.
It's just like, but the article could have at least had the titles Aftermath trilogy. That's all. So I don't know. It seems like a bit of move. I know, Ashley. I'll turn this to you. Did you read the Aftermath trilogy? How much do you recall of it? And does this news kind of strike you in any way?
Yeah, so I definitely read Aftermath, and I feel like it's tragic to say that has to be like almost a decade ago, since it was leading up to the sequel trilogy. So that's upsetting. I was definitely one of the people who, once I started reading the book, was reading it with great chagrin because I did not like Wendig's writing. That being said, I will read any book for the lore, and I will go, oh, this is so painful, but give me those lore drops. Like, you're saying it bad, but it sounds good with the knowledge. So, I mean, I'm excited to see a little bit more of this filled in for sure. I also weirdly had a really visceral and like really enjoyed the bombers from the sequel trilogy, like you see in The Last Jedi. So like seeing that on the cover, I'm like, hell yeah, more heavy bombers. Don't know why. I think I just like the
all right.
I don't know. Maybe it's because it feels like a bowling alley somehow. I like maybe that's why it resonates. I don't know. I'm also I like weird random things like that. Also, Interceptor ties, always gonna love that. So I'm really always excited for more zoom in about the universe, and all of the cool things that came out of the sequel trilogy. And it'll also be interesting, I think, in general, just to like you were saying before, see more from Luke. Because I feel like, between the original trilogy and like up to The Last Jedi, we don't have that much in canon. Of course, there's plenty of comics that go into like little smaller adventures, but I'm excited to see this like
Mhm.
specific time.
Yeah, especially yeah, like we just have the one level or whatever in Battlefront 2. That's
Yeah.
basically it. Things kind of set up, but yeah, we like there's a moment with Luke and Lando. That's kind of the moment I thought, oh, are they gonna explore a little bit more? Because yeah, he's going out looking for Jedi artifacts, and he's more or less free to, at least if he's away from the Empire and where it's protected by the Republic and or the Rebellion or whatever they're called this week. Um, but yeah, and looking forward to maybe more detail about the Galactic Accordance and the politics, especially that issue number 2 that has Leia and Mon on the cover. So yeah, there's lots to chew on with this one. Joel, you think I'm kind of out to lunch with the whole Wendig versus Disney narrative? Well, what was your reaction to this news, and then what do you think how do you think it might relate to the Aftermath trilogy?
I mean, I don't think it really has to because ultimately it says the story never told before. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
called Luke Skywalker story. We haven't gotten zilch from that in the post Endor area. I mean, that was like Luke was not even in it. We got more Leia than we got
Yeah.
Luke. So there's the untold story. Because what the heck was Luke doing during this time?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I also just think that these ongoings aren't going to really cover a big chunk of time. It does seem like they're really just going to cover the Star Wars Uprising video game. Came out in 2015, one of the first bits of post Endor material.
Hmm.
That's Governor Adelon, by the way, folks. So that is a poll from 2015. He's been referenced in almost everything. Um, Another thing that kind of confuses me a little bit is that okay, they're like 3 maxi series.
Yeah.
So this is like my kind of here's my conspiracy theory. I'll give mine. We get these 3 maxi series, and then the ongoing continue post Jakku, pre Mando.
Hmm.
That's maybe what I'm reading into it because like we don't have an ongoing for Afra or the bounty hunters, and I totally feel like those guys are going to continue on eventually, right? Like they kind of have to eventually. But I do wonder if like if we're going to be doing like these maxi series covering like these tiny little pieces of the post Endor aftermath Alfred Squad, which honestly is like it's such a big era where a bunch of stuff has already happened, so it's not that hard to like say like oh a bunch of this stuff is going on at the same time, sort of the Clone Wars in a certain sense. And then once that's done, once everything kind of calms, then it's like okay, post Jakku, but pre the Mandalorian Thrawn stuff. Then we can do our ongoing series with, although I guess with Luke, Leia, Han, Afra, the bounty hunters. That's like there's no ongoing series mentioned yet, right? Like
No.
that was not part of the
Uh,
announcement. As of now,
yeah, as of now, maybe as of Thursday afternoon, when both the solicits come out Thursday, and of course that's timed for the big publishing panel on at this little con called San Diego. And
right?
so that no, I mean, Chris Abbott and I have gone back and forth about this. I'm wondering if that's going to be more about outlaws, that panel, but we'll find out. We'll know. Uh, yeah, you're right. There's a lot they could do in this thing. I just was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I guess kind of my hope for a Phantom Menace era ongoing. I mean, it's still alive. It's still alive. You never know, but yeah, signs are pointing to they're building the groundwork for this. That being said, they've also built the groundwork for Phantom Menace era, right? With the Mace Windu comic, the Django comic, the Maul comic, Black, White, Red. So there's different possibilities. Maybe they'll do both at the same time. Maybe we'll all get to be one big happy prequelist, sequelist, originalist family. Won't that be wonderful? At least in paper canon. Why not? Yeah. The thing about the language of maxi series that is confusing. I think the word maxi series refers to a 12 issue Battle of Jakku series with these 3 arcs, this trilogy that has its own names, these 4 issue trilogies. Um, sorry, trilogy of four issue arcs. If I'm making any
That
sense
makes
right
sense.
now.
That would make sense because 4 times 3
Yeah.
is 12.
Math. There we go.
There we go.
We're doing math here on Iron Cannon podcast.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like, at least to me,
Yeah.
that we're doing ongoing set immediately post Endor. I feel like this is like
Mhm.
inflection point, and then we can kind of separate out again. And like,
Yeah.
here's Afra's
Right.
adventures in the post Endor era. Luke
Mhm.
saying
And they'll have
Bounty
to see
Hunter
what the
back.
sales. Yeah, they'll have to see what the sales numbers are like. Also to say like this could be Insurgency Tree Rising could be the main cast. The next arc could be Bounty Hunters, and we know Kira's still alive. We know Tonga and Lasha and Bylon is still
Afra.
there. Yeah, and Chelly, and wherever Chelly's head is at, who knows? But Chelly not after the Empire, that'll be interesting. That'll be a fun thing. So, all right, Ash, Joel, do you guys have any last thoughts on this one?
Nope. I'm just curious. Oh, sorry.
Oh
You're
no,
good.
all I was gonna say is that what I really want is I want to see just one panel of like they're integrating Battlefront 2 when you get to play Luke when he's finding the compass on Pilio, and then you just see like Afra seeing him getting that scene, like damn it.
Oh, that'd be
And
funny.
then they've laid groundwork for them to like cross paths again.
There you
'Cause I would love to see him and Afra
Mhm.
together in some capacity.
That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Like yeah, to see them reunited because they were kind of together in I think the ongoing from before and then that weird horror arc. from
Oh
before,
yeah, I
way
forgot
back
about
when.
that. Like the not Vader's castle, but the other one, right?
Yeah, the other weird
Yeah.
one.
The vampire one.
One
Yeah.
comic one thing I forgot was Shattered Empire, which does have a
Oh, yeah.
crossover with Battlefront 2. So
True.
it
Oh yeah,
is
right. The Naboo.
yeah on Naboo, which is really cool to see N1s in this era in two different stories. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, that again it is just a little odd that there's such a crowded era already. They're giving this is gonna be a Luke, hopefully a Luke centric book.
I don't think it's that crowded. I think it's actually
It's getting pretty crowded.
That's crowded the post Empire era. Now that was
No,
crowded.
not anymore. Yeah, no, that was, but they're finally finished with that. So until they get a novel, the Battle of Tanab, but that's good.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So that's not what we're here for. I mean, we're here for canon, but we're here for another canon story called The Acolyte. The show called The Acolyte, and Joel, for that, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, the Acolyte. All right. So, as we always do on the Ion Canon podcast, we always ask our guest the first question. So, Ashley, I will toss it to you. What has your experience been with the High Republic Book Initiative as of the show coming out?
So I am behind, but I was reading from day one. So very happy to see a lot of things with Vern popping up as far as Easter eggs. I have a lot of questions about her as well, based on what I have not read and that, as far as I know, is not explained to anyone yet. So yeah, definitely. Actually, I was just talking to Matt about this the other day that I don't know what book I'm on because I read it on Kindle and I just am on the next page and I just keep going. But we think I'm on Eye of the Storm.
Yeah, Eye of Darkness. I think you're
Or Eye
somewhere.
of Darkness, yeah.
Either
yeah,
Eye of Darkness or Defy the Storm. You're somewhere in phase 3. You're not that far.
And now I'm mixing up titles too. So there you go. but yeah. Oh, cat.
There
you go. No,
I've got a dog behind me. I tilt my head in the right direction.
Oh my.
Named Anakin, by the way.
There you go.
Oh, that's adorable. I love that. So, my follow-up question then to you would be, how do you think the Acolyte, in your opinion, has done in representing the High Republic on screen?
I think it did a really great job. I enjoyed actually seeing everyone in their like regalia, the formality of the Jedi. Obviously can't overlook the light whip. That was beautiful. But yeah, everything about that version of the very like astute, staunch Jedi, like truly, like almost everyone is a temple guard in a way, is kind of how I think about it, like that level. Also hashtag Yord Horde. Like I love. I want a whole series with just Yord like talking to younglings or something. Yes.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
But yeah, all that to say, I think it did a really great job, and I think it did a great job for both me being like, the thing, and then also in speaking to friends who haven't seen or haven't read and just saw the series, they were like, oh, this seems really cool, and they weren't totally thrown off by all of the little minor changes. Like it still feels like Star Wars and the Jedi, just almost heightened, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Actually, pun intended.
There we go.
No,
Heightened Republic. The Heightened Republic.
We love puns here. We love puns. So I mean, let's get to it. Actually, I'll throw this question to you again. What were your overall thoughts on the episode 8, The Acolyte?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I should say I 50% enjoyed it, and I 50% am slightly unsatisfied insofar as a lot of things were a duh. Like the main storyline with May and Osha were a duh from the beginning. So it didn't feel like that was a payoff. But at the same time, everything that they're setting up, obviously getting to see the little bit of Plagueis, I really, really enjoyed, all of that and seeing everything come together and see what they're setting up. So I'm hoping season 2 actually gets greenlit, because I have so many questions about why Vern is so sus.
Yeah.
Like all of those little things that they did in the last episode, I did enjoy, but yeah, I can't say it was my favorite episode of the season.
Yeah. Well, what has been your favorite episode, would you say?
Oh, that's a good question. Episode 4? I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but basically when Kamir reveals himself and that whole fight.
Probably
That's
5.
5. Is that 5? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know numbers.
That's
I'm just a lawyer.
Math is hard.
We don't
dang
do
it.
those.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't count. It's not my life.
Can't build this. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, basically, anytime Kamir's fighting, I'm happy, and that's my favorite. So even though it resulted in so many sad things.
Yeah.
We don't blame you.
Hard days until we love him, but he took the origin check.
I know. Unacceptable.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this series, this season, and we're gonna do next week. We're gonna do a whole look back on the season. But yeah, you talk about these storylines, Osha and May not being the fairly predictable, and that not being a bad thing. Was it Joel? Maybe you mentioned this, or somebody mentioned this. It's
both.
maybe it was Dom. I forget who, but it's was marketed as a mystery.
Oh, I mentioned that.
Yeah, but it really isn't a mystery. I mean, it's funny. That's the bait and switch a little bit, is that we're supposed to be able to predict these things, because the reveals aren't the point. Almost to say that the reveals, all this kind of fan speculation about reveals and all that was just kind of drumming up things, almost a red herring in a way, and just to say, yeah, no, the obvious answer is the right answer. The important questions are, what are these characters' journeys? One, sorry, I'm doing math here. What are the characters' journeys, and what, especially with episode 3, I keep coming back to this. It's what do we want to happen and why, and that, then what do we think happened and why. And so then in this last episode, for things to turn out the way we kind of expected, it was still, it's all about execution. It was still satisfying. The lightsaber duel with Soul and Kimir, the stranger, whatever his name is, that was fantastic. That was spectacular. And then of course Osha, Amanda Stenberg, like completely. I mean, a show is strong when the lead actor and the lead characters and the lead character is strong. And she really takes it home with both characters in this episode.
And Lee Jong-jae, let's not forget.
Yeah, he was
my
good too.
MVP. My MVP.
Yeah, he was really fantastic too. I'm just saying, Amanda was that much better, especially with Osha. You really believe her turn. Unlike Here's the thing. You actually mentioned episode 4. You meant episode 5. That's fair. Everyone, that's a beloved episode. Episode 4 is the one that nobody likes because it's like, what's happening? 'Cause,
Fair.
you know, because May's turn doesn't make much sense, but Osha is this whole season long turn, and it's finally satisfying to see it happen. My goodness, the
I got an
lightsaber, the
incendiary
Kyber-
take about Osha's turn. I'll say after.
yeah, sure. The Kyber crystal,
Uh-uh.
seeing that was so spectacular. So just the way it uses lore for character, for story, was really effective. Again, Leslie being a student of Star Wars and being a first rate storyteller and movie showrunner, really brought this home. And finishing a story obviously doesn't fully finish the story, but it finishes the story enough to say, yeah, the season is done. The series is not done. The season is done. And that's hard to do. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'll just say I would rather have a mystery that I can predict than one of those mysteries where you can tell the author thinks they're clever,
Yeah.
and then it's just really unsatisfying, and then it's like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, you play with my emotions a little too much, buddy. Or they changed it midway because everyone predicted it online, which sucked. Which has happened apparently.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, okay, here's my incendiary take. I think Osha's turn to the dark side is like the best turn to the dark side ever. I think it's better than Anakin's, quite frankly. Because I feel like I believe her more when she turns.
Yeah.
And what happens at the end, and how it's sort of such a gradual thing. And it feels so quick. But now she's like murder ragey and killing the younglings all of a sudden the next second. So I think it's the best turn of the dark side I've ever seen on screen.
I'll give it that. It is a little smoother. As much as I love Revenge of the Sith, I can see what you mean. I will concede that much.
I think there's more problems there. But yeah, I think it's definitely got smoother.
Yeah.
Layer. But yeah, I mean, I love the fights. Lee Jung Jae, that's his actor's name, right?
Lee Jung Jae. Yeah.
Okay, I'm always afraid of saying it wrong. Like, oh my god, his performance is so A++++, man. He's been the best. He's been my favorite actor of this whole show. And his death scene, it hits hard. And I don't know. I think in some ways I buy kind of May a little bit more in this episode retroactively of episode 4, in terms of just kind of her all over the placeness. And what she kind of looking for. And it's kind of funny now, like I said, they did switch. I predicted that too, and I was right.
The eclipse, they reversed, yeah.
Yep, they reversed. I thought so. Yeah, overall, and the stuff we'll talk about at the end. I'll save that to the very, very end. But yeah,
like the cameos, you mean?
Yeah, the cameos. We'll talk about both of them. But yeah, I mean, I thought I was right, and it is the arc is over. I think this is the one. I think that this is to me where I think like the satisfaction of a season. Like every season should have an arc, and if that arc is complete, even if there's more adventures to be told, sort of like Andor. I think Andor, there is an arc for Andor, right? He goes from guy who doesn't want to get involved to now I'm involved in the wildness. But there's clearly more to do, right? It doesn't end with just like and now I'm dead. It's like no, like I'm ready to get involved. Loosen. Here we go. More adventures to come. But the arc is finished. So if Andor season 1 was the last one, that would be satisfying. I'm glad it's not. I'm glad we get to see kind of the build up to Rogue One, obviously. But again, the arc is over. We have seen May go from Osha. I'm gonna keep doing that. Osha from failed Jedi to Acolyte. And now it's sort of like, well, what are her and the stranger Chimeras adventures moving forward with who? Hopefully we'll find out. But yeah, I definitely agree. It definitely felt that I think it concluded what it needed to conclude in that regard. But actually, I'll toss it to you. What did you make of Osha's inevitable turn to the dark side of the Force, and May's, I guess now, turn to the light, and that she doesn't remember much?
You know what I've been thinking about, because they are the same person, they are one technically, is like how much, whatever we're going to call these, like souls are interacting, you know, and if what happens to one means the other is more likely to do the opposite to maintain that balance because of the Force. I can't think of the word right now. What do you call
Dyad?
it? Dyad, thank you. For some reason I was like, triad's not right because there's two of them and couldn't come up with die. Okay, dyad. Which, by the way, I do feel like is getting tossed around too much now. I think it made sense here, like, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like it's getting tossed around too flippantly in lore as a thing in general. But I did like it the way that they did it here. That's neither here nor there. So yeah, I totally did the same thing, Joel, where I was like, they're obviously going to switch, you know, and like again, the same thing with like it not being a mystery. Kamir was never a mystery because he literally recites the Sith code in like the first episode.
In the trailer,
like, oh, did he say it in the trailer? I don't remember. That's so funny. Oh my god. Yeah. So I definitely do agree that the fall made a lot more sense from a timing perspective within the narrative, and yeah, just watching the conflict still bear out by the use of the visual of the Force crystal actually being the Force crystal. Jeez, I can't speak today.
It's all good.
No, that's okay.
The Kyber crystal being bled, like that was so cool. And I don't know of another instance where anyone is basically accidentally bled their crystal, because it seems like that's something that's usually taught from a Sith, with like the traditional Sith. Granted, I'm pulling from KOTOR and other legend stuff, so it's I'm not pulling out, oh, this goes against canon.
Even in canon, like that's the first time we've seen it.
Leslie Headland is a big KOTOR fan. I can tell watching that she likes that game.
Totally agree. And like, yeah, I also loved like, the use of the cortosis just in general in combat, and seeing May come out of that, because then you get to see like the Force properties, like, or rather Osha coming out of that. I'm now doing that too. Osha coming out of the helmet and like freaking out, because that I really enjoyed it.
That helmet moment, by the way, and Matt, this is something we kind of talked about a little bit when we were kind of speculating a little. We were trying to be a little too clever about what Chimere was. About it's like, oh, is this a Kiza Darth moment situation? Well, this moment with Osha is very. It wasn't exactly that, obviously, but I could tell there was some pull there. The way that helmet was affecting everything around her and Chimere. As well, like obviously it's not exactly a Sith spirit taking over her body or anything like that, but you can tell that helmet was having an effect on her.
Yeah, I mean, even with Chimere, you see, I mean, maybe it's an intentional choice on his part, but maybe not entirely, right? Maybe it's just not all or nothing, right? He puts the mask on, it changes his voice. He definitely becomes more ominous. Becomes more, I mean, that's just the virtue of having a weird smiley mask like that. But in this episode, when he needs to connect with Osha, he definitely has it off. He needs to connect with the audience, he has it off. When he's confronting Soul, like, he disappears in front of the gate there. Next thing you know, he's inside and about to take on Soul. And there's definitely something, just again, it is just the visual and the act of putting on this kind of, I mean, it's a sensory deprivation mask. You got to be able to know what's happening kind of outside it. So that's got to be this weird thing. So I think there is something implied about what's going on there and what's happening there. Like we saw at the beginning of the episode, where you get the same black eyes and kind of transported into a kind of a vision. He's able to break out of it, unlike Torben, for example. it's the same kind of dark magic that they're using. So yeah,
Right.
there's something
Uh,
about that. It is interesting. One of the things we about that moment. One of the things we thought at the end of episode 5, okay, or episode 6 rather. How are they going to frame this flashback episode? And that they didn't really. They had it unmediated, but again, another thing that's implied is that at the very least, clearly turns out Osha isn't told anything by the mask except for the vision of the future. She isn't given anything about the past,
very
but
Anakin
she's
fighting.
but she's predisposed to it. I think she's more predisposed. I mean, that's again part of her turn is that this mask opens her up to the possibility of really blaming Soul for everything and really saying and not even with Osha with May rather saying no, he's got to stand trial. Yeah, like very Anakin, he must stand trial. It's not the Jedi way, not the way of May sort of moving towards the light even more, and uh at least in terms of saying okay, we got to actually do this the right way. And Osha of course not doing it the right way at all, force choking him, and now he can't testify. Of course that feeds into Vernestra's whole attempted cover up. She's able to think quick. We'll get to her later on, but I will say, I think Joel, maybe you just mentioned this episode makes May's turn fit better because we have that moment with Chimera and Osha saying that May took the deal without even thinking about it. She reneged on the deal without even thinking about it, really, right? Like if she's just that's just how, oddly enough, I'm trying to think about this. She was so gung ho as a kid about wanting to stick with the plan, stick with going to this ascension ceremony and going through with it and becoming, following in her mother's footsteps. I have two thoughts there. Either, she's, uh, either, she's just mindlessly going with the flow either way, right? Mindlessly going with, I mean, she's 8 at that point, kids don't usually have as much sense of this is what I want to do that Osha does and that in those episodes. But May is just going with it, or or when her mother
Yeah.
is now dead, she doesn't have anyone to guide her, so she's just flitting to and fro, and this very kind of Jyn Erso like thing of waiting under this tree for who knows how long as this kid just waiting alone, and who knows, we don't fully know who picked up, but it makes her switch in episode 4 have a lot more context. Maybe we could have had that somebody comment about that earlier to make it make more sense about how easily she took the deal. We have some hints of it, I guess, in episode 2, I believe, but
Well,
yeah,
I have a thought on that
yeah, go for
Oh,
it.
sure.
in
Go ahead.
general. Like thematically, if you look at basically all of the turnings or attempted turnings in Star Wars, it's based on isolation.
Hmm.
So if you see, so May thinks that, she, without, she's being isolated from her sister, and that's who she wants to be closest with. Like, of course, she wants to be part of the coven, and that's why she's
Mhm.
so willing to jump into it. But
Yeah.
then when she commits herself and gets the cool little mark, her sister says no. And so she
Mhm.
is isolated from the other half of herself.
Right.
Same thing when Osha turns. She turns because she goes into the sensory deprivation, like that it totally isolates you, and that boosts her turn to the dark side. And what brings May back
Mhm.
is the fact that she kind of finds out that she's not actually alone. She does have her sister, but obviously Osha's not pumped with everything that she's done in her life.
Right.
But then also, like, you look at the two classics that came before. So Anakin, he thinks that he's going to lose Padme, be alone, be isolated. He thinks Obi-Wan's turned against him. All of these things are pieces of isolation. And then when Palpatine's trying to turn Luke, his whole thing is, look, all your friends are going to die and you're alone
Yeah.
now. So I think that isolation theme is something that we've always seen in Star Wars when it
Mhm.
comes to dark side turns, and they're doing that in a really cool way, because here you see, like, oh, being with someone can bring you together and turn you back from the dark side, lead you towards the path of light. where in contrast, that's not what that the more that Osha feels alone, the more, and betrayed by those that she loved, the more, it's more easy to go down that path.
Mhm.
But I also think that's what makes Kumir so interesting, is he's kind of trying to find almost like a midpoint,
Yeah.
because he is going for that connection, and then the weird handhold on the lightsaber, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
go
I,
ahead.
and I would even add, I saw someone on Twitter mention this, and I wish I had the full tweet because I don't remember what exactly they said. But the thing about this series is, in a weird way, it's almost a little bit turning the fall of the dark side thing on one's head, in a sense, where you can make the argument, not made. Dang it, I'm gonna keep doing that.
Yeah. We all are.
Osha doesn't fall to the dark side. In some way, she's ascending to it, but almost like should be a natural thing almost. Obviously, I don't think it's glorifying the dark side or anything like that, but it's certainly taking, like, Anakin was a fall, Osha's an ascension. Which is kind of funny because in the Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine is, when trying to get ready to do the thing, is like, with your hatred, you will take my life, and you will ascend. Which fun fact, I'm going to quote again, in the Rise of Skywalker novelization, that line goes, with your hatred, you will take my life, and you will ascend, as I did when I killed my master, Darth Plagueis. So it's interesting. That guy. Yes. So I think it's kind of interesting that this series, in some ways, is because it is. I mean, it's both not a mystery, it's a tragedy, but also in some ways, Matthew, it is a bad guy story. It is inherently a dark side point of view story, with the dark side as the narrative of protagonist. Then a fall is an ascension instead of a fall, because it's not a hero's fall; it's an ascension of a person to the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, or to the power that's promised by the dark side and granted, if you will. It's, and that's that's the way it's at least portrayed, and that's the thing to note is, especially, I mean, with episode 6, right, Chimera being seduced to the dark side, right, being very much, you're being empowered by the dark. It uses language with episode 6, but sticking with this episode too, it's the Jedi in this episode, and we'll get to them in a minute, they've fallen, they're below, they're down, and Osha and May, I did too. Again, Amanda Stenberg, her performance, the way she's playing it, at least, is to say that the dark side is what's grounding her, it's what's she's finding herself in it. And and there is a great note in the middle of this episode that reminds us, hold on a minute, and we'll get to that at the end. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, probably with music and the way this episode ends, especially, right, is these Sith, they look like the good guys. they really do, and the Jedi, they look the bad guys. And it all comes back in a way to episode 3. At least in a little different way. In episode 3, it didn't portray anybody as one way or the other. It just said, here, the Jedi do good things, Jedi do bad things. The witches do good things, and say Mother Anastasia says good things, and Mother Coral says some bad things. And whichever one you want, the more important question is, why is it that you want them to come out on top? Here it more says,
oh, that's episode 3. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about Revenge of the Sith.
Well, that one too, but no, well, yeah, here it's, I mean, this interesting. Revenge of the Sith is a third option, or I guess a second option, satisfying, because the dark side comes. It's tragic, but it's like, yeah, I mean, you could read it as Vader has found himself. You could also read it as just not really, nobody really does, but you could read it as at least the satisfying end to a story. I mean, the perfect end to this prequel trilogy. The way that everything is paced out and built out, and it's the greatest third act of all time. And then, of course, here's, I think, with this episode, a third option of, you know, we have to really sit with, okay, this feels good, this feels right, what Osha's doing. It's portrayed, been written as very right, and as we were saying, Vern is very sus, and Soul is still sus, and Kamir is kind of this knight in black armor. You know, not saving Osha, but empowering her to be herself. And again, the way Amanda's performing this, it's to say, do we actually go with it? Do we want to go with it? Will people just unthinkingly go with it, or will they say, "Oh, this is interesting that we're tempted to go with it, but really we have to remember to know otherwise." And that itself, that interplay itself, of that dialogue within ourselves, that is also very fascinating. This show is doing, it's very new. And so, yeah, it is an ascent to the dark side, getting thematically what Mother Anna said, their mother actually says, of, you have to sacrifice a part of yourself. Osha, like, I still think, I mean, yeah, she kills Soul without a weapon, but she really kills herself without a weapon. The Jedi within is what she sacrifices in order to ascend. And yeah, probably not going to turn out well for her. It might turn out okay for her, but it doesn't turn out great for the galaxy, because, what happens. Here's another thing, that what happens when a Jedi loses it and goes unhinged 100 years later. No, nobody will be able to stop him. He will, again, there's this film called by George Lucas called Revenge of the Sith. That's what that's referring to, instead of Rain Court. Yeah, that's, it's more literal of what the dark side fall is. But yeah, I can see why with Osha it's, definitely more gradual. It is better written. I'll give it that. But it's yeah, this different tone to it that we haven't seen before.
I also just want to say, I really well. I guess we can get to Soul in a bit. Yeah. I guess we should just get to Soul now. Actually, I'll toss it to you. What have you thought about Master Soul so far throughout the series and his endpoint in episode 8?
Yeah, I thought, from the beginning, I loved him, and he's, right from the get-go, a very complex character.
Mhm.
Obviously because of the backstory that's, part of the, one of the pieces of the mystery here. But also, I just like that he kind of doesn't act like the Jedi that we normally see,
Mhm.
because you see him get like really mad. You see him and Indara almost fight, like a lot of those things that you usually don't see. It's just like, obviously Anakin is the strongest example of the kind of going rogue, but you don't ever see like kind of the normal Jedi,
Mhm.
ever really questioning, the council or their orders or things like that to any significant extent. And with the, obviously the implications here. I
Yeah.
will say though that when he kills their mother, maybe this makes me a bad person. I was like, oh, that sucks. But like, I kind of get that he was really scared and he can't tell the difference between the twins. Like obviously that's a lesson. Don't act out of fear because you're gonna make the wrong choice
Yeah.
most likely. But at the same time, I was like, I mean, they were like kind of about to attack him. She wasn't, but the rest of the coven was. So like,
Yeah.
it didn't
Smoke
seem like
monster. Smoke monster.
exactly. Exactly. Maybe just smoke is very scary to Soul. I don't know. I mean, yeah, to be fair, we haven't really seen that outside. I mean, it's not like he actually, now that I think about it, because they reference the Night Sisters, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Theoretically, that shouldn't have caught him maybe as off guard as it did, because they have their cool. Granted, it's like green wispy smoke instead of black, so maybe scarier in that way. But yeah, all that to say, to see a Jedi actually be complex instead of basically all good, or like, just like it was,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it wasn't like necessarily flirting with the dark side. It was just flirting with what it means to be a Jedi who's just kind of a normal, human being.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I thought that was, really rank and file Jedi that I really liked all of that
Mhm.
with him.
Agreed. One thing I found really interesting about this episode was Soul's only regretted that he didn't save May. He
Yeah.
doesn't really say, "I'm sorry for killing your mother,"
True.
or causing all that intervention. Like he was really gun ho about getting that virgins discovered by the Jedi Order. Um,
Mhm.
I've always, I've said, I think I've said this on the podcast. Maybe I've said this in my head. I do that sometimes.
Oh.
I've called Soul kind of like he's the dark side of Qui-Gon, but not like literally in a literal sense.
Hmm.
He's not like cis Qui-Gon or anything, but like, you know, we compare him to Qui-Gon. People have compared him to Qui-Gon. I've done it before. But yeah, as the show was going on, I kind of realized, Qui-Gon actually was not much of a rogue compared to what Soul's been doing. And he had a much better head on his shoulders.
Mhm.
At least he reported things to Council
True.
most of the time. It's like, the Council didn't like it, but it's like, hey, at least I still like, hey, Council, I'm going to do this thing you don't like, but I'm still going to tell you. So,
Mhm.
yeah. You're like, oh, yeah, here's this Anakin kid. I think he should be important. But also he's not, like, getting overly emotionally attached, like over Obi-Wan. Like, hey, Obi-Wan, you gotta leave the nest eventually. I mean, I remember, Matt, you were like talking about, like, he was ready, like, okay, Obi-Wan, go be a master now. Go be a knight.
Yeah.
Take the trials. You're good.
Could be a
good.
Yeah.
And obviously, Qui-Gon, at least, his reasoning for wanting Anakin never feel like, I just want a Padawan. It's like, oh god, this kid like might bring cosmic balance to the Force. It's only a little bit more of a grander thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we never saw Qui-Gon be super self-righteous. Like, he's like, I killed these people, but I had to because it was the right thing to do. Which also I really like just how again May kills Soul. I mean, dang it, we're gonna be doing this all day.
Osha.
We're gonna be doing this all day. Osha kills Soul because like it is. I love it because like it's a kill, but I think it's a kill that makes a lot of sense in terms of a fall. Where it's like, it's not like a cold-hearted kill by a character who's mostly been a good person. Like it is sort of like they're kind of not in control of their own self at that point. I'm not saying like Osha thing. Osha is mind controlled or anything, but like the rage has gotten to her. Like she is very much not in her right mind. I mean, not right mind. It's not the best phrase, but like the anger definitely taking hold. So is the dark side. It's kind of like, like even just the way after he kills Soul is also kind of go back to Osha a little bit. It's something I want to bring up. It's something that I really like because like it's not like. Like I killed Soul. Now red eyes, red lightsaber, dun 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 dun. It's like she almost had like a little bit of a breakdown. Like she had a moment like to cry about it. Like, oh my god, what did I do? Which I think is a lot very realistic in terms of like, okay, she had a fall, but she's also like not like now I'm evil. It's like sometimes falls to the dark side feel a little too much like and this isn't even just revenge. This is just like a lot of Star Wars have a bit of like, oh. We've switched the doll to evil now. The evil switch has been turned on.
Right.
This is a bit more. Oh shoot! I just killed someone. My master, my father figure almost. But I'm also kind of okay with it, but kind of not. I have complex feelings. I know. I also, by the way, I really love Soul's kind of like last lines going. It's okay. Like there is no like as much as self-righteous as he was, there was also no anger in this. I feel like by then Soul kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like it's okay, Osha. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of Soul in the final episode, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, he sees the writing on the wall. Maybe at that moment he finally sees it, right? Like the kind of this deathbed confession, if you will. It's. I think Chris Abbott was saying, just after this episode aired on Wednesday, he's likened to another dark side fall. Of someone who gets isolated from a father figure, namely Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, killing his literal birth father in Force Awakens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a very similar moment, right? It's okay. This is part of your story. Almost saying he's giving her himself as part of her story. Hopefully with some hope that this leads to some sense of redemption.
Right.
At the in the end, that is that whole the Qui-Gon comparison always comes up because we know Lee Jung Jae he looked at Liam Neeson's performance and just the character, and even the hair in that era, and at least the present timeline, and kind of saying what Qui-Gon could be. The difference being, of course, Qui-Gon is someone who is so internally disciplined that the external disciplines just get in the way, and internally disciplined, focused on being in tune to the Force and what the Force was really calling and leading him to. The council and stuff and the rules just kind of sometimes he knows when to play ball and he knows when to push back, and he knows he's actually just the Force rewards him, right? Is kind of the thing, and at the end of the day, the Force does, right?
Mhm.
Whereas with Soul, he's not disciplined. He's not internally. He's like you're saying, like Ash, you're saying, just complex, really emotion driven. To Raincourt's point, controlling that which can't be controlled, namely the internal self, and it is healthy in the sense of he lets it out, but not healthy in the sense that he lets it out only selectively. And clearly, the attachment to Osha, right? He was gonna say, I did this because I loved you. Stop talking. In that moment, that she couldn't hear it because that action, the thing, you justifying it, right? How many people justify terrible things in the name of love?
Anakin.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? Self-justifying things in the name of love. Of course, Anakin does to Padme what Osha ends up doing to Soul, in a way. I mean, we don't. George left that a mystery. This Leslie doesn't leave this a mystery, but yeah, it's funny. All this season, I was all hoping he'd have some sort of redemption within himself. But that requires him to recognize that he did this terrible thing, and he doesn't believe he's done this terrible thing. He's continues to it's denialism, and he persists in his denialism, and that's also a tragedy of Soul, because he could have, because he's clearly haunted by it. He's clearly like trying to find a way to live with this, and the way he learns to live with it is by justifying it to himself and refusing to face any of the consequences, and refusing to accept what those what the fact of the matter means, that he could just in this panic. I think it's more that he knows what the Night Sisters are about, and so, well, this is like the Night Sisters. They do terrible things. I've got to yank my lightsaber out and do what I got to do. I got to ignite the blue, right? And unlike Luke, who actually goes to kind of too far the other way, Soul, and that's also just as problematic, but Soul stuffs it down and says, no, I did the right thing. I just wanted to protect these kids, and that's it. That's the end of the day. And that, I was, and I won't. That's the thing. I won't say I was disappointed. I was obviously wanted the other thing for real world reasons, mostly, to be honest. This was one of those things where this didn't happen the way I had hoped and predicted, but the execution was such that I bought it and I was sold on it, and fits within this time period, right? This is the end. This is the turn to the late Republic, into I think both Soul and Vern. 100 years ago, while we're seeing it, this is a bit of a spoiler for Temptation of the Force coming out right now. Elzar, he's racked. His conscience is racked about what happened, what he did to was it not Chancey Hero? Oh goodness, who does he? One of the mothers of one of the younger characters. He does what Soul does at the end of Fallen Star, in a blind rage, just slices someone in half. Silvestris, I think. Yeah, it might have been Chancey.
Vestigaros?
Yeah, it might have been Chancey Euro. Slices her in half in a fit of rage because he thinks she's Yeah, he thinks she's with the Nile and sabotaging Starlight. Really, she's trying to save Starlight. And so yeah, that there's the contrast, and we'll get to, and I think that's also partly what's happening with Vern thematically. Yeah, there's the contrast. Soul, he doesn't, yeah, he doesn't let his conscience be pricked. He doesn't let his he doesn't face the hard truth. Partly that's Indara saying, don't let this happen to this kid. Don't let what happened. But later on, because what does end up happening with her anyways, right? As she says, she couldn't handle the rage. She couldn't face it either. She kept blaming May. And that goes back to the dyad and blaming this part of herself that is external to her.
But we don't know they're a dyad. I just think that she still.
Well, it makes sense in the sense, I think, Ash, this is what you're getting at, in that they are connected in the Force more intimately, the way, even maybe more intimately than Rey and Ben. But what was I saying? Yeah, with Soul, that's the thing, is it turns out his denialism turned out to be in vain anyways, because it actually kept her from becoming a Jedi ultimately. And yeah, this tragic mess, everything falls apart because people aren't willing. That's the thing. There's the theme. To be the first thing he tells Osha when she's 8 years old, you have to have the courage to say what you want. Want to be a Jedi, then you must have the courage to say the truth. And Soul fails at his own advice, and that's the tragedy.
Star Wars for you. When you're not talking to people, it all just goes downhill. Communication and therapist are the two things Star Wars needs in life.
Yes.
What was I going to say? I had a thing. Shoot, I forgot the thing.
It happens.
I'm blanking right now.
You'll get back to it. It's okay.
Yeah. What did you love that it's the soul crystal that turned that bleed?
Yes, well, that's the one more thing I do want to say. Again, similar to the Ben Solo thing. I mean,
that's right.
The thing about a Sith is you have to break your chains. The things that at least you're being led to believe are your chains. Of course, in the Darth Plagueis novel, part of Palpatine's rise is he kills his family. And he was already a psychopath. Like something was off in his brain, right? He doesn't care. At that point. Yeah, with Osha's ascendancy, it is odd that May doesn't stop her. I watched it again tonight, and I'm like, why doesn't May just stop her? Probably because she's too afraid of this power. She knows this power. She understands it a little bit. But yeah, that was a bit of an unanswered question why May doesn't stop Osha. But yeah, Osha isolating herself the way Kylo isolates himself from his paternal figure. Yeah, like you're saying, kind of goes towards this other, gonna be this toxic, unequal relationship with Chimera, because that's how the Sith are. They're coded for toxic masculinity all the way down. But she feels she doesn't know that yet, unfortunately. Hopefully, when she learns that, she'll be able to say, actually, because remember, Chimera says you'd have the relationship that you had with Soul. I guess that was with Jackie. But also, I mean, isolated from Jackie and isolated from Yord and all the other, the ways that she could have come together. So, yeah, his death. I mean, that's kind of that is one thing I predicted. It definitely is a part of what makes her turn very believable.
I remember now what you were going to say. Yeah. So Chris Abbott really did bring up a good point then about the Ben Solo thing. Cause, I didn't think about that. It's like, oh yeah, this is very like when Han dies, and kind of like, this is kind of knows that
Soul and Solo.
Sorry.
Fine.
Soul Solo.
I tried.
great.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not claiming that. I'm just saying
okay.
they're my funny coincidence.
It is very, this is kind of. Han knows that he's either gonna get Ben back or he's gonna die. So either way, it's like, well, it's kind of what I need to do. I feel like in those moments, like, so it's like, okay, yep, I got to be the sacrifice here. Maybe a little. I mean, maybe like by the last minute, but but yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. Like, I mean, let's get to Chimere and Vernestra. What kind of?
Well, first of all, I mean, do we have any last thoughts on Soul?
Oh yeah, any last thoughts on Soul? Actually,
I don't know. All right, fair.
All right.
But I throw the floor open. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, good idea. But yeah, let's get to Chimere and Vernestra, because this is very much the kind of the season 2 teasing, if there is one. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know. I had a friend who once said that like 1/3 of this episode felt like they were prepping for a season 2, and then 2/3 of the episode was like prepping for a season 2, but then the last third was like, oh, we better wrap up something just in case we don't get one, which I think is very much the Mayanocha stuff. Because this is where the season 2 stuff definitely comes in with Vernestra and Chimere, which I think you called, Matthew, so congrats on that. I mean, a lot of us called it. I mean,
what did I call?
Chimere and Vernestra.
I think Ashley, you called it.
Okay.
I did. I was.
Yeah, you were messaging me.
Okay, congrats. So yeah, I guess I'll toss it to you. Actually, what do you think of your prediction coming? Chimere and Vernestra, Master and Padawan, once upon a time.
Yeah. So the way that Vernestra like actually decided to go into hyperspace, which by the way, I love that Easter egg of talking about how she gets hyperspace sickness, but because they had set her up as very much like a homebody for Coruscant, and she actually goes, I was like, okay, she knows something or has suspicions about what's going on here, and I'm like, it must be a Padawan. And so yeah, that's when she did the whole like, you're still alive, and they did the Padawan thing. I was like, yes, I knew it. But my question is, who is he? Because like, not that we really have. Well, maybe I don't remember how well they describe Imri in the books necessarily, but obviously like in the art and stuff, he's like a little blonde kid. So like that partly makes me think, okay, yeah, it's probably not Imri, it's someone else. But at the same time, to me, I wouldn't be shocked if they did decide to make him Imri, because he is so focused on the emotional aspect of the Force and the dark side, as he's like talking to Osha about trying to giving the pitch to join the dark side, which by the way, I feel like now I will finally be like, okay, I'll consider it.
That kind of pitch, sure.
Yeah. But basically because he's so focused on that emotion, and Emery's whole thing is like, emotions make him crazy because he can feel them so strongly, and then maybe he's the only way he's figured out that he can use what is kind of a weakness that the Jedi are trying to train him not to feel these things and to tamp that power a lot, that he's like, no, in the same way that I was saying about chains, like those are his chains, is the Jedi telling him this power is not helpful to you. These emotions and feeling others' emotions is bad and dangerous. And so instead, he's like, no, I'm going to feel all of these things, and I'm going to use all of these things to actually harness that power instead. So, like, if they did decide to it's not like a true retcon, I would say, but if they wanted to make a memory, I would think that would make sense totally thematically. But if it's some other Padawan of hers that we don't know yet, also excited to see that. But part of the reason I called the Padawan thing was, actually, I think even before we see Vernestra, or maybe it's the same episode, when she is like, it seems sus in general, is that his scar on his back looks whip shaped as far as I'm concerned. So I think that she light whipped him in a battle, which would be pretty gnarly.
Okay, can I just say, Vernestra was given some serious mom energy. Like just the way Kyber puts on the helmet, I was like, oh shoot, my mom's here. Gotta hide.
That's interesting.
He's
I
like
mean,
this, like your bad boy son is like just being a hooligan. It's like, mom, you're whip him back into shape. Whip him. Dude, that was a fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just say, I just want to jump in and say, I forgot about the kind of the like the Sifo-Dyas type of. I guess it's a different thing, but just that empath, being like a heightened empath power. That for Jedi would be terrible. He has the sensory deprivation mask. There it is, and definitely the theme of with Soul with Master and Padawan attachment. Vernestra, I mean, her ship is called the Kantaros, right? She still has this, at least wants to honor him, but maybe if your theory is true, and I'm not fully convinced. I think he's a little young. Could be unnaturally prolonged. Could be a different thing.
That's a long Padawan ship to be part of.
Yeah, but like his life could be prolonged unnaturally because he's a Sith. Um, I think it might be because she needs this kind of cautionary tale of, oh, I this guy fell under my watch, just like Obi-Wan will have this fill this cautionary tale, and Ahsoka for Vader. Yeah, whoever it is, it's definitely. I mean, well, now we know it. The Emery theory is definitely possible. I'll give you that.
I'm just more on team. Vernestra had other Padawans, and this one was a dud. It can happen. It done. It can happen.
Or I mean, when she's more sus later on, and there's some wedge that Plagueis or somebody can use to say, oh yeah, Vern, this you're well, to Chimera, your master, she's getting to all this shady stuff, because last time we see in Defy the Storm, last time we see Vern and Imri, it's definitely, she's just so much younger, and Ash, I think this is kind of what you're getting at, how much better of a person she is when she's younger and really far more in line with the ideals of the Force. And so anyway, we'll
And
get to
also
that in a minute.
finds politicking to be distasteful because that's
Right.
her whole thing. Is she finds out essentially she's being used by the senator to carry out this like faux investigation, and she that leaves a really bad taste in her mouth. So that also is shocking to me, that like I seeing that Vernestra, who's like, this is gross, we have these ideals, we shouldn't be really involved in politics in that way, or at least utilized as like that, to be like, granted she does have a contentious relationship with with the senator, but she still is doing that politicking and being shady in the way she disliked before. So
she's playing the game.
See, maybe I'm just jaded, but I'm not surprised by any of this. It's the analogy I always do with the sequel trilogy, and I'm gonna get real here for a second. With the original trilogy, Luke and Leia, they're the '60s hippies, peace and love, get out of Vietnam. What do those hippies do 10 years later? They all vote for Ronald Reagan.
Fair.
Yeah.
Become Republicans. So I mean, obviously they didn't go that extreme with Luke, and Luke's now pro-Empire. But I mean, if anything, they either become Republicans or they just become weird, jaded hippies that kind of go off into weird places.
Or they get they climb the corporate ladder, and they find, oh, the system is actually serving me. I'm not some 19-year-old who's having to deal with the fall of Starlight Beacon, so I'm going to go off to this planet on my own because I don't know what to do. Now it's 100 years later. I'm a master, in charge of, basically it seems like she's like secret ops for the Jedi and all the shady, protecting the reputation of the institution and doing the dirty work so that the council doesn't have to do it. Unlike what we see with Indara in episode 7, where she's actually is liaising and is saying, here's this kind of complicated situation going on. Let's get the council's advice. And they actually recommend That's the funny thing. You just 16 years before they're a lot less shady, the Jedi as a whole. And there's this direct connection. Now Burns established this pocket of this layer in between that she's got to protect the reputation of the institution. And I think a few weeks ago I was kind of giving her the benefit of the doubt and saying, well, yeah, I work in comms. You gotta make sure your organization's putting your best foot forward, and you highlight the strengths of it. That's just basic PR. Here she's definitely gotten sucked into the trap that so much comms PR, the political game of that, of, well, I've so used to and bought into and have this disposition of the kind of the footing of this approach of I have to defend the institution, that I've internalized this idea that any criticism of the institution is an attack on me, an attack on everything I hold to be good and right, even if what I'm doing, I can't even see that what I'm doing. I mean, it's even more than soul, worse than soul. Like she can't see what she's doing is good and is not so good, right? It's shady as Malachor, shady as hell, and so
See you in hell, Jedi.
yeah. So again, what happened in those 100 years, and this is kind of what I'm getting at. And I was thinking about this. Wyvern specifically.
I want to know that too.
Well, here's my theory: is thematically is because here's the we can very clearly track the decline, track the descent. We have the story of her, being kind and being investing in people, being allergic to politics, being allergic to the shady, taking this time away and then coming back. And now she's this is a bit of a spoiler, involved now being phase 3, part of the effort of rescuing people, helping Avar and then rescue people from within the occlusion zone, and really empowering, working with Avon and helping her figure out way through the, we're just working with the team, working with the good guys. And now she, because it was the High Republic, the Jedi and the Republic, we are all the Republic, and for light and life and everything, all those ideals, it's just this other thing, it's other kind of Star Wars story where the Jedi and the Republic are actually the good guys, and that's what the interesting ways it's set up, more by and large.
Yeah, say that, but Vern goes to a little Muppet who's been doing shady things for a long time.
So yes, but even Yoda, I mean, he's kind of off the beaten path, but even then, I mean, he's kind of working with Azul and Rel, and we don't fully know what the implications of that are going to be. But by and large, in the High Republic, this is the premise. What's so interesting, the Jedi and the Republic are the good guys, and they have this nameless threat, Nihil threat, this guy here, who presents a challenge beyond what they can handle. The fast forward to 100 years, and yes, Vern, like the Reagan voters, has now climbed the corporate ladder and has made all these compromises, and gotten, spent all these 100 years being used to this cozy relationship, and has internalized that this is just how it ought to be. And here comes Raincourt saying, he's saying an extreme as well. He's the only one who thinks that his belief in the light side of the Force is probably suspect. I don't know, and by suspect I mean for the time.
I actually have a more different opinion on Raincourt.
But or whatever. At the very least, he has this radically anti-Jedi view that he's the only one in a Senate of 1,000 senators. How's this? She clearly sees this as this big rival, this big enemy, political enemies, as you say. And so, to go from that's why Vern, right? We can track in her own character the difference in the descent.
I would love to legit, I mean, seriously though, I would love to legit hear what Leslie Headland said if you ask her why Vern,
Yeah.
she gave that answer. Or
Yeah, sorry, and I mean a way to bring her wife into it too.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
we'll get into Rancor in a second, but I still want to talk about Chimera. We talked about Vern.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I guess Chimera is kind of for what if we get season 2, but Chimera is such a fascinating character. And I'm very curious what that kind of toxic marriage of Osha and him are going to be like if season 2. But also sort of like that final moment where it's kind of like him, May, and Osha, yeah, all together and just so I almost thought it was gonna be like you got to kill May, we got to kill her. Like kind of like no, we're gonna mind wipe her, which I mean, guess not good, but he's not dead. Which I found
Still
kind of
isolates her, though.
I found almost like a weird act of mercy on his part. Like, okay, we'll just do this so you don't have to kill your sister. It's that nuance, a little bit of that nuance in Chimera. But actually, I'll talk to you. What do you think of Chimera in the final episode? What do you want to see him go?
Yeah, well, to jump on that theory, which I also thought was weird for a second, that he allowed May to be spared, because I had the same thought, like, oh, she's gonna have to kill her. But
Mhm.
my thought is maybe I obviously we don't know exactly how May ended up with him initially. But my theory is he also maybe, through Plagueis or otherwise, had some sort of theory about the Virgins
Mhm.
and the dyad. And so maybe he knows a little bit more, like from a research perspective, that
Mhm.
perhaps if you get rid of one, there's a major effect on the other negatively. And he doesn't want to like fuck up his
Maybe.
new Padawan. Also, sorry if I shouldn't.
No, that's fine. That's
As
fine.
I said it, I was like, whoops.
Oh no,
Wouldn't be the
that's
first time.
and also, what to say when Soul's giving the explanation. There's this movie, like, when he goes, like, your mother used the power to create life. There's this little moment of Kyber just going, what the? Like,
Interesting.
did you not notice that? Or did you notice
Yeah.
that? Okay,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I didn't notice
it's
that.
almost like, note for later. Could
Yeah.
Yeah.
come in advantage in case I need to live.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of that as well. But yeah, that
Yeah. I mean, I've always wondered. I mean, I always noticed this. At the end of episode 4, the really great part of episode 4 is the end, and when he shows up. I mean, the way it's played, you think he's about to kill Osha, right? She's the one standing in front of him. He ignites the saber, like, no, not gonna stab her. No, he just shoves her out of the way. And both of them are so that, yeah, that could be a good point, that he knows something about them as well. Maybe, or at least I mean, at the very least, he knows Osha's, I mean, that moment, he knows Osha might be actually the one who turns. Yeah, I mean, it could be, save spare May. I kind of wondered, he's still trying to seduce Osha. He's still trying to paint this turn as a turn to empowering herself. And clearly there's an attachment, and Sith use Jedi shun them, Sith use them to manipulate people. And so I think he's if that had to happen, uh because yeah, I mean, it is odd that Osha, and I didn't do it this time, I was thinking about May, I promise. Osha had blamed May and had so much rage about her, switches to Soul, both because he actually is the one who kills the mother, but also because he's a Jedi, and he's imbued, and Osha's now imbued with this again. I think putting the mask on has really prepared her to say, well, May, she actually joined the Sith for a bit. She's in the clear. I can, return to having this bond with her, and mourning her. Whereas with Soul, it's all her rage is being transitioned over to Soul. Stop talking. Stop talking. And um, yeah. I mean, that being said, they both stop talking. It is this weird thing. It's almost, for Chimera, it's the best of both worlds, right? Gets to get May out of the way so that Osha is isolated and can only turn to him, but also doesn't kill May. It's in a way that Osha can get behind and be accept and can be good with. May herself is the one who says do it, right? Consents
Right.
to it.
I also wonder, and this is again a season 2 speculation, so I kind of want to let's go through this a little bit. I do wonder if, even if it's toxic, I wonder if Kaimi will develop a natural attachment to Osha. If a love will,
He's capable of that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, legit, because the funny, because it's like we never seen a Darksider truly love, and it's like people think good and love is the same thing. I don't agree with that. I think love and evil can be simpatico with each other in a weird way. I think I sort of like whenever you see the villains like pretend to love, it's like they don't really. It's like, oh no, I think there's gonna be villains who are terrible and abusive, but they do kind of in that weird way love that person.
Anakin.
Yeah, Anakin. It's like even when he's doing this thing to Padme in the final moment, he still loved Padme. There's almost like and like this is kind of the weird thing about the Sith, is or like they're similar to the Jedi. The good Sith, by the good Sith I mean the smart one. They kind of know how to detach. They kind of know, like, I wouldn't even love anybody outside himself. He's not gonna let anyone get in his way. There's a Sith can never truly love another. There's only my way. But like, Chimere might, even if it's toxic, have a genuine attachment to Osha, and that could be his downfall. Actually, I'll toss it to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think all of that definitely tracks, insofar as, the attachment theory and everything. The other thing I've been thinking about is the whole power of one, power of two theme that they have going on. So kind of jumping back a little bit, maybe that's another reason to leave kind of May alive, is to harness that power of two as part of the power of two, or the rule of two, rather, I should say. So it's almost like taking that a step further, where you have the rule of two, but really it's three. And I mean, I feel like one of the things that will be interesting to see is like how Plagueis is factoring in here. So is his whole plan for an Acolyte because he actually thinks he can get rid of Plagueis, or is he trying to do something different and find that nuance that we've kind of been talking about? Because he's a weird ass Sith, and he doesn't have like the traditional like Sith eyes. Like he's not exactly like, it doesn't seem like he's, I'm going to say, all the way dark side, insofar as he's definitely like on the spectrum of light and dark. He's definitely much more heavily dark, but he does have that capacity for mercy, whether it's for his own interests or not. He still technically, did show that mercy. Two is like you were saying, does seem to maybe be developing love, and like, yeah, in kind of the Anakin sense, where I'm sure it will be toxic as hell, as you were saying, Joel. But at the same time, I think it's a lot of fun that they're definitely like playing in that nuance. With him. Yeah.
And you were talking about mercy. I mean, the future pupil of Plagueis once said, "There is no mercy." Zippy zap. Yeah. Any more further thoughts on Vanessa or Chimere before we get to the Senator, and then we can do the cameos?
I mean, I will say there's one little hint. There's always a hint, even in phase 1. Go back to the first story she's in. I think A Test of Courage. The light whip was always a little suspect, and at the beginning, it was about, here's this young knight saying, I'm gonna express myself. I'm gonna be, I guess even is a Padawan she have here. This is a variant. This is never a story moment, but it's her and Stellan, the Master Apprentice variant. But it was always a little, she was always concerned. The council would be like, well, what are you doing with this weird form factor of a lightsaber? Also, do we want to read something into the color? Just questions I have. We know the more famous lavender lightsaber. I call it lavender, purple lightsaber, Mace Windu. Also, kind of suspect in the same way, playing the politics, being willing to strike Palpatine down, and Anakin has to come. It's not the Jedi way. in that moment. I don't know what else you do differently, but was there always maybe similar to thinking about Osha's story and how she always wanted that kind of independence and that empowerment that could be taken in either direction. Vern in phase 3, she's taking it in a better direction. She at the end of phase 1, she becomes a way seeker, right? Or way seeker. Uh, in phase 3, she's more of a standard traditional knight. But was there always at least a strain? That's the thing with independence. There's always a strain. I mean, independence, but also, that the institution is now serving her. Is she collapsed into the institution, or is she now? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Um, you know, maybe she's kind of lost a bit of her sense of independence, and that's why
She got an office job.
She got the office job, right? Again, the Reagan voter. That's a great parallel, Joel, by the way.
Yeah.
The Reagan voter. No, she's Reagan herself gone. I don't know if Reagan was ever a Democrat, but he was a Hollywood guy turned actor. I don't know. There's some folks who've switched sides like that.
Like in the 40s, maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, being she's maybe her independence has become collapsed into the institution, but also who knows what happened with Chimera, right? Was it sort of an Ignite the Green moment, and it actually connected this time? Was it maybe just a duel, and Chimera's playing it up to blame, to be as in his broken chains moment, but really he was in the wrong. Maybe we'll see that in season 2. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the mystery that they've definitely made more interesting. Last thing to say, again, I've said this multiple times. I am so shocked. We got so much out of this book character. This character originated in a young reader book, picture book. Obviously got really fleshed out in a YA novel and other YA novels, and now he's in the adult novel. Now, 100 years later, on screen, having a major role. That's the bench. That's the high water mark now. This is way beyond Cobb Vanth, way beyond Chrysanthemum. This is definitely the record for sure. And not just in time, but in quality and impact on the story.
Oh yeah, I'm glad we got this Nestor, and it was great. So let's do a little bit into Senator. What's his name?
Raincourt.
I would want to call him Rampart, but no, that's a different character. That's Bad Batch in season Admiral. Senator Raincourt. I like him. I like his actor. And maybe I'm in the minority camp, but it's kind of right. It's kind of right a lot of the time. Jedi are kind of scary, and they're like these cops, monks with powers working kind of with the Republic. Think they can kind of do what they like. It's like, I don't know. I'd be a little nervous too. And he talks about Jedi can't control the uncontrollable, which are emotions. I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, I guess you can definitely tamper your emotions. You can't control them 100%. Obviously, you don't want to lash out every 5 seconds, but I do wonder if he sees them a little too much. Like, you're trying to be robots, trying to be Vulcans. Like, people don't like Vulcans. It's like, are we always going to be?
I love Vulcans, so.
Well, Dr. McCoy eventually likes to learn Vulcan. But, it's like people who always like, can Vulcans really be what they say to be, like pure logic, remove all the emotions? Which a lot of the prequel Jedi people compare the prequel Jedi to Vulcans. It's like it's kind of Vulcan-y, like just pure logic.
At least the ideal is,
and also I'll say people would want to be like a Sith agent is like, I hope not. I always feel like that's too easy. Like it's can't just be a guy who just has a different opinion and maybe has some good points. I think he's got some good points. It's like, look at what the Jedi are doing now. It's like, something maybe you should look into it as the institution. I mean, he is obviously the unelected senator. He should,
civilian oversight over the military and all that. There you go.
Over the police.
Yeah.
The guys with the blue sabers.
The thin gold line. Sorry.
You know,
Did I go there? Did I go there?
maybe. I mean,
I fully haven't. Our friend Ellie from what's it called? The
God of the
God of the Ferrex. Yeah, she definitely went there.
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I said this to you, Matthew, in the chat, but it's like, the two people who critique the Jedi the hardest are played by color actors,
Yeah.
black actors, actresses.
That's an
So
intentional choice.
that has to be an intentional choice. By the way, David Hare was a very good actor. I really, he just like for a one-time role, he just like I see why. Like he just had presence.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing you want if you're going to be like a small role. Like get a guy with presence. But yeah, actually, I'll talk to you what you think of Senator Rancor. Did I get say it right?
Rancor.
Yeah.
Rancor.
I feel like it sounds like Rancor, like rar.
Oh yeah.
Which maybe is on purpose because he's threatening the Jedi, and we've seen that before. Rancors and Jedi now getting along. But no, I really want, as much as people like to joke, isn't it cool that they made a kids movie about galactic politics and trade routes? Like I love that. And so I love whenever they bring these kind of political questions into Star Wars. And so I love the juxtaposition always between like what the Jedi's role is supposed to be from like a quasi-governmental perspective. And I totally agree with you, Joel. I think that he is right. The Jedi do need some oversight. And part of the reason I think that, and I was actually talking to Matt about this the other day, is that I think that it doesn't matter what the dogma is, but to the extent you are subscribed to a very specific dogma to an at all cost type of mindset, that's always going to cause problems. If you can't see nuance because you're so attached to the dogma, that's problematic. And that's, I think, obviously across the board, a lot of the Jedi's issue is either holding to the dogma too much, or forsaking it when it benefits them from a PR perspective for the order, or just in ways that are otherwise unacceptable in general, and lead to a lot of other messy situations. So I'm totally on team control the Jedi from a governmental perspective. Do that investigation, bring them in hearings before the Senate.
You'd vote for him.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
100% based on that, especially because, I think if you don't have all of the information that we have as viewers, so like as a citizen of the galaxy, I would probably be like, I don't know, I haven't seen anything that the Jedi do. They seem really good, and this would be,
Right.
coming from maybe my privileged perspective on Coruscant and not having had, something happen on the Outer Rim bad with the Jedi. So of course there's always that kind of nuance that we see, in real life. So I think it's, super interesting. And then because we know that they're being suspect, that obviously brings me on board a lot more. Also, super quick, this is like 1% removed on topic, and I can't take credit for this, I just thought it was so cool, so I had to repeat it. That when, because obviously the question is, how much is Vernestra telling the council about like what, the Sith, or if she thinks there's truly Sith and all of that kind of thing. So like, why in Phantom Menace is the Jedi like, but we haven't seen the Sith for 1,000 years, blah blah blah. But there's a look that Mace Windu gives to Yoda just for a half second, like oh shit, like they know. And so my idea is that like Vernestra did tell them and they covered it up, and so I'm even more pro investigate the Jedi.
I have something here actually, if I can find it. Here it is. I'm gonna put this in the camera. I hope this finds something from a Tumblr, a picture I found. I'll cover the swear word. Where if you can see it, it's like, here's Qui-Gon. He's like, hey, here's this kid with no dad, and he's like, he's a virgin. Here's Yoda. So he's thinking about Osha and like all the Jedi. I hope we can get trouble with that. And it's like, I'll just talk a little about the Yoda thing. Like, Yoda knows, and that's why he's so against Anakin being trained, even though the council was like, sure, but Yoda's like, bad idea. Last time bad stuff happened, we lost a bunch of Jedi. I can't say anything. I can't.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, what do you think, Matthew, of Senator
Raincourt? Yeah, I mean, again, I'm team of the real world history, right? And that's that's one of those litmus things of where do you bring from the real world into this conversation? Well, first of all, but even also the in-universe, I'll say with the in-universe, it is fascinating to see, you track from, Senator Tia Toon in The Rising Storm, where he's all, yeah, I love the Jedi, but local security forces, they know their planets better. They should have the experience, and they have the training. They should have more of the experience and ownership over defending their local territories and handling local disputes, and let the Jedi be the spiritual leaders of the galaxy more. And that's fine. To Raincourt, which he doesn't care about the Jedi being the spiritual leaders of the galaxy. They haven't really been. I mean, that is the real victory of Markey and Rowe, I think, is that they lose the ability to do that, or they kind of slowly, gradually cede that ability, because they're so afraid, like the Nameless just take them out, and the sense of even their own confidence, right? The sense of their own ability to be the guardians of peace and justice, and by that, just not necessarily just guardians, but people who can commune with the Force and help facilitate the wider galaxy, the wider Republic's connection to the Force, and say, okay, we get so much into, to say, yeah, that gets challenged, and so we have to double down by wanting the Republic to reinforce that legally more and more, and get enmeshed into the Constitution of the Republic in a way that, medieval church was, but also wasn't. It's complicated. I mean, there are, is there religious diversity in the Republic at this point? There wasn't so much in the Middle Ages, and that's why it was, in the late Middle Ages especially, and why, there was this religious diversity called the Reformation. And so, but that was about church control by who. Time to bring this up here.
Back in the day, the Pope can say the king was okay, or the Pope can say, oh, that king's got to go.
Well, but even then, it's okay. The king can try people can at least, like a church tribunal would try someone for heresy, and then soldiers of the crown would take that person away and burn them or whatever. This is what happened. And we have, and maybe not. I mean, there were more or less, was more and then less or more toleration of differences. I mean, the story of Jews in Western Europe is very much in, you could have freedom, then it gets taken away, then you have it, and people were not at all Christian. And so, there was religious diversity, interaction with Muslims too. By the time, clearly what Raincourt is reacting to is, that not only does the Republic enforce what the interests of the Jedi are free to go and brandish their lightsabers and do what they need to do. We are getting this one little snippet. Again, maybe I am bringing in real world concerns a little, not real world concerns in the present. I don't think, that my bishop should be able to go to the police and say, hey, these
the bishop is the police. He is the cop.
Well, that, or, I don't think the bishop should be putting on a police vest and saying, I'm gonna, but I know historically that just was part of just how things were. And I tend to have a bit more of a neutral, there were things that were a lot worse about that world. There were things that, maybe we can learn from in terms of sense of community and sense of common good that we've maybe lost, especially in cities. And that's a whole conversation to be had. but to say he's clearly reacting, that with Rancor, the Jedi uh, are having basically are putting on the police vests, and Vern is the police chief, and the
Captain Bird.
captain of the precinct, and reacting on that. The one thing I will say, just in the in-universe, this is maybe the most fascinating thing to me. The in-universe story is, you go from Tiatun to Raincourt having this completely, just, I don't care about the whole spiritual leadership question. Jedi have too much power. They need civilian oversight, to the point of, you get the Martez sisters, you get this whole massive sentiment about why are these Jedi leading this war that we're all so exhausted by. I mean, that's Chris Kempshaw pointing this out, that the point of the Clone Wars was to soften up the whole Republic, the whole society, for a Jedi free, civilian order, if you want to put it that way. It's just the choice between, it wasn't a civilian order versus a Jedi order. Well, the civilian order happens to also be a military. It's the Grand
and a
Army,
secret Sith order too.
and it's secret Sith, but they don't know that, and so it's to say Palpatine, using Rancor's concerns against him, and how that just spreads throughout this wide sentiment. Because that's the funny thing. Rancor, like I said before, he asked this question: Jedi need to be held in check. What if one of you snaps? Can you control him?
And that's happened before too.
It happened before, and it happened in Legends, for example, whatnot. But that's the second real prediction about the events of Revenge of the Sith, right? Mother Anna say your good intentions will end up with every Jedi dead. What if one of you goes south, breaks bad? The whole galaxy suffers. He becomes known as Palpatine's enforcer. He becomes the great symbol of the evil of the Empire, and just the not just the evil, but the might of the Empire, right? Even more than the technological terror of the Death Star, it's insignificant to the power of the Force that Darth Vader is able to wield across the galaxy. And so, he's right. Except that my point being, Palpatine uses that fear against, uses the fear saying the Jedi need to be contained, to say, okay, except for this one Jedi who happened to be immune from the corruption of the Order. He was with me all the time. He's not the traitor. I guess he died, sadly, or however, but here's this other mysterious black armored figure who looks like a Jedi, sounds like a Jedi, but we can trust him. Yeah, you got a red lightsaber. We can trust him because he's not a Jedi, and the whole flipping that on its head too. So, although the way things got plotted through, that was really fascinating. I know. I went on for a long time with that, but
we'll wrap up soon.
Really,
I know we're getting to the 2 hour point. We got like a little bit. We got a little bit more.
We're almost done. We're almost done.
Yep. I mean, these are more questions. I feel like I don't want the Ray film to answer, because they're not going away just because Palpatine exploded. Those questions linger. All right.
You want the Ray movie to to look back, reflect back on the history. Yeah, I see what you mean there.
Yeah. But all right. We got to get to the final point. To get that final point, I must ask the question. The question that has been tingling us this entire episode. Actually, Matthew, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
It's not a story the Jedi
I feel
will
like,
tell.
Exactly. It's. I've been hanging out with too many Jedi, and they haven't told me anything.
No, they don't tell you. Dang nothing. But let's get to it. Those cameos, and I guess we'll start with the first one. Papa Plagueis himself looking out at these two youngsters on his island. They're gonna cause all sorts of ruckus, just trying to get some sleep. So the
That's what he's
internet's
doing.
gonna, Chimera's gone. The internet's gone out. Dang it. I guess I mean I have so many questions, but I guess I'll start with my kind of like my hottest take on this cameo. I think where they put it was perfect. I think having it at the end of this end stinger would have been a little too cheesy, a little too end credity. I think it would have been distracting. I think weirdly putting it in the smack dab beginning, middle-ish area works as kind of like this intriguing thing. Yeah, it makes you want to season 2 more, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't distract you from what's important, which is obviously the characters itself. But also, it just makes me kind of curious, like, what is he doing there? What is his connections to Chimera and Osha and this whole storyline? I'm kind of in camp. Chimera does not know he's there, and that Chimera just thinks like, "Oh, look at me! I got the secret acolyte pupil person. I'm gonna, play my master. I'm so smart. I'm a smart Sith Lord." Meanwhile, Plagueis is like, "What's that boy doing? We'll have to whip him back into shape." Like he's just watching, like, "What's that crazy kid up to?" Because he's Plagueis and he can probably hide himself because he is the darkest of dark lords. He's Palpatine's master. Third point, and this is kind of I'll leave off, and then I'll point to you actually is, I think Plagueis, and I think you kind of brought it up a little bit, Matthew. It's kind of a good reminder of, for all the nuance of Chimera and May and Osha, Plagueis is our Palpatine. Plagueis is our, oh yeah, here is the dark side, pure evil. There's no nuance with this Mun. I think Kevin's the Mun. I'm so happy. He looks exactly how I predicted Plagueis should look like. It's like he will be, if the story continues, our pure evil Palpatine in all his glory. But actually, I'll talk to you. What do you think when you saw Plagueis himself looking out?
I mostly just scared my little Anakin by being like, yes, he's here. Because, obviously those theories were floating around and I was just waiting for something to be indicative of it. I actually wasn't expecting to like fully see him. And the fact that we got like a full head and some fingies, I was excited about. Exactly, little fingies.
Big long fingies.
I love that, by the way. But yeah, I also have the same or similar questions as far as what is he doing? Especially because I know I said this a little bit before, but it feels like, Chimera is not true, like full Sith. Like maybe he was, and then maybe, I don't know, something that Plagueis asked him to do, he was actually like, I don't know about that, man. And then kind of like transition back to this middle dark place where he seems to be. I almost imagine he's going to be almost like a Quinlan Voss figure in a way, or maybe we'll see him start turning more light again and have this like kind of constant push and pull because he's been around these like magics of the Force. So, but yeah, so I also, I just want to know so many things about what's going on with Mr. Plagueis. Has he like, is he keeping up with him with respect to, he was fully his apprentice before. Where is Palps in all of this? Is he on the scene at all? We don't necessarily know at this point. And that's also why I'm not against I still believe in the Emery theory potentially, is because everyone's so old, because the dark side leads to, abilities that some find unnatural. So we've seen humans or humanoids, because I guess we don't technically know that he's human, even though he's obviously human, live for a long time because of the Force and dark side powers. So I just need more. I need more.
I know. Matthew, I'll toss it to you. I mean, I know you didn't believe it was Plagueis. So I showed you the thing. So I guess I'll ask you, like, now that you know it's Plagueis, and what do you think? What are your thoughts on just the scene, and what your thoughts on seeing Plagueis, and what kind of how you feel
so at first, I didn't believe, maybe because it was all I won't buy it until it's confirmed, and also he is a lot older, and is he really immune? It's kind of just obscure and all that. And then yes, of course, Leslie comes out with this article, I guess on Nerdist maybe, or wherever it was. Yeah, that's definitely definitely Darth P. The guy.
Yes.
Hugo, but spelt Hago, I guess, the mask. Um, guessing, I mean, I'm guessing because in the article, she's like, yeah, he's got to be immune. She's probably going to hew pretty close to the novel, and of course, that's a really fantastic story. I mean, why not change? Well, why change what is so well put together in terms of just him being this this hedge fund banker or whatever it is, this just pulling all the financial strings in the public view as this great finance magnate. The banking clan, I guess. Yeah, it's the banking clan. But yeah, to see him there, I guess the question is, what's the function of this cameo? Again, another thing Leslie mentioned was, yeah, she didn't want to. They had thought to put him at the end, but that would have taken away. That would have utterly taken away the triumphalism and the satisfaction, the positive spin of Osha's turn to the dark side. Is this this great ascent? It wouldn't have felt like an ascent. So the function of it, then I got thinking about that. It still feels like an ascent, but it's a reminder that it isn't really. Still a reminder that, okay, we're still being played with here. And Osha's definitely being played with. Even if this does kind of turn out well for her, it probably won't. It doesn't turn out well for the galaxy because of everything Plagueis is doing, and using that's the thing. And so everything Plagueis is doing, and how he's the unmasked. We see this unmasked evil that Chimera isn't, even especially when he doesn't have his mask on. He's a masked evil. I do think I'm still seeing Chimera as really playing up the heartthrob just to get Osha on his side. I think this is the story that we warn Raylos against. It's the story that Raylos wish they gotten, but it was the story with the reason, if Ray and Ben had gotten together, it would have turned bad for Ray because that's
or bad for Chimera. Osha might get better at the dark side. Than
that's also possible. That is possible too, right? They might play with that. Either way, we're not supposed to think that. Well, that's the thing. It does provoke this thought, like with everything with Vern. It provokes this thought. Are we supposed to think the Jedi are now evil all of a sudden, and that the Sith are somehow good all of a sudden? Kind of like what Leslie was playing with us in the interviews before the show. This Plagueis cameo still says, no, this is a Star Wars story. This is still the light is the light and the dark is the dark. It's just our way of moving in it and through it is complex, and we don't always fully see everything. And so, yeah, I appreciate that we have at least this moment to remind us of that. Just so we, just to keep us clear, keep our heads clear. And as long as we're paying attention and thinking these things through. I think Chimera is still the Sith apprentice. I think there's a reason he perks his ears up, like Joel, you were mentioning, when Soul talks about Osha and May's origins, because I think he knows Plagueis is looking for something just like this, and so he's going to bring that, at least, or use that information. So if Plagueis is looking for it, then Chimera is looking for it. Chimera might be looking for it because Plagueis is looking for it, and so maybe using that information somehow. And so I do think it is the rule of two, right? You want to hold power, want to crave it, and one of the ways you shore up, you act on that craving is by, in Chimera's case, maybe using a different kind of craving and appealing to a different kind of craving that Osha has, and appealing to her deeper desires to be serious about it. I can definitely see the two of them at least making a run at Plagueis. and then Kymer becomes the master, and Ocean becomes the apprentice. At least that's the plan. That's the theory.
And like
Maybe
Leslie Hudson said, that's not going to happen. It's going to be a tragedy.
it's going to be a tragedy. It's going to be, like she said, it's going to be a lot more convoluted than that. And I think it's just not going to go very well. And Osha is going to realize, oh no, I've been horribly deceived. What have I done? But yeah, that and again, that's the purpose of this cameo, is to say that moment is coming, even if she doesn't see it now. We're supposed to at least think it. We're not supposed to feel it, but we're supposed to think it. Is why.
I wonder if she ends up in a lab.
Yeah. Because, probably.
Yeah, with and like I would love one day, whether it's with Plagueis pre-Palpatine or during Palpatine, or even in the future in some just like disparate place, I don't even care, is to see like her in one of the like cloning vats as something like the M count manipulation of the Force. All of that research would be like really dark and interesting to me.
What if she's the canon version of Venomous? Right? That kind of that has that kind of role. Like you're saying, there's a reason Kymer keeps May alive. maybe they know something. Maybe here's the thing. Maybe we have another flashback episode. This is what I was expecting. I was almost expecting a Plagueis or somebody to come out of the woodwork in episode 7, and they didn't. Maybe that's season 2 is another flashback episode saying, "Oh, actually, they had an eye on them."
Yeah, for science.
For science.
Evil, dark science, secrets only the Sith knew. No, yeah, you're right. It's gonna be messy. Ultimately, the person who kind of wins is not even alive yet. They might not even be conceived, or at least a baby. There's a 1-year-old Palpatine.
They'll have to change his birthday on the Wikipedia again. It's fine.
But yeah, I mean,
that's the true tragedy.
Yeah, we know.
Exactly. But yeah, or maybe we should never assume that just because they just can't be Sith. They doesn't mean they have to die. I mean, they might hike it and like run away. So yeah, ultimately, yeah, like Leslie said, it's going to be a tragedy. The tragedy of it all. But I guess we'll get to the last cameo at the very end for like 1 second. Although we talked about it a lot. Little puppet Yoda. And that was a puppet. That was definitely a puppet. You can tell by the way the ears were moving. Yeah, I like this little cameo, and I think it kind of makes sense. This cover-up goes all the way to the top. The Grandmaster himself, a little Muppet who always hides things. Greatest teacher failure is because in High Republic time we did some messed up stuff. But yeah, I also think in some ways Yoda knowing Mally makes the most sense of stuff going on. It kind of does make you wonder how much Yoda actually knows and is just hiding from everybody, right? Like again, I showed you that little cartoon of like why he was so against Anakin. It's like, oh, that makes total sense now. But actually, I'll talk to you. What do you think of the Yoda cameo at the stinger? That was a stinger.
Yeah, totally. So part of the reason I liked it so much is that I agree with you that it was good that Plagueis was earlier because, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, this was better for the casual viewer who isn't like, oh, it's Darth Plagueis, we knew it, as the stinger. It's the person who's like, oh, good, someone I know, something to cling on to keep me watching. So it's not just too much scary new stuff for those fans who are maybe not reading the books or whatever. Also, yeah, as we've touched on and we just said, like I love that he is now getting more complicated as well, and because I mean he's 900 years old in the end. And like if you are just the perfect person for 900 years, that's not believable. Like he has to have not been the perfect little Yoda species boy for his whole life.
Unlike
so yeah, it's true. Grogu is perfect for forever, although he's sus. He eats things he shouldn't.
True.
With no remorse. But but yeah, so I really enjoyed it from almost like a marketing perspective as
Mhm.
well as a story and thematic perspective, because yeah, I also like seeing Vernestra being in charge and being able to just approach Master Yoda like that. As it shows how far she's come within the order as well, which I think is very interesting.
Mhm.
So definitely interested to see what exactly she tells him and what he does with that information. So
Mhm.
Yeah, Matthew, what did you think of Yoda? And Leslie Hetton lied. He was in the show.
Whatever, that's fine.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, what you think of Yoda?
I mean, all of this discussion makes me, I think I'm having kind of the response that I think probably people had to the prequels, in that it kind of changes a little bit what episode 1 is. It feels, because it fills it out, and that's a bit of it's a shift. It's a bit of a disconcerting shift, like that cartoon you just showed.
Mhm.
It adds this new information that we have to now accept was always there. And I got the hashtag prequels shirt. Like, I'm good with it. I'll live with it.
I mean, this is an episode 0 in a way.
It really is. I mean, it really is. And here's the thing: in so much the way James Luceno did, right? Filled out so much of episode in that novel. Now Leslie Headland is filling out so much about episode 1 in this show, in different ways, for different much further, not that much further back, but 100 years back as opposed to 60 years back. But yeah, to see, okay, yeah, Yoda knows about all these things and can at least, I'll be curious to see if he's always had a head on his shoulders. He's always, even in the prequels, he still tries to be the voice of reason, especially during the Clone Wars show. He tries to be the voice of reason, the voice of counsel. To Anakin, he gives him terrible dating advice. uh, but otherwise, I guess he's kind of, it's a reminder again, almost like with Plagueis, that, I mean, not exactly the same. Like, Plagueis is saying, yeah, the Sith are pure evil. It's to say, whatever you think about Vern being so shady, the Jedi are always going to be actually mixed and struggle with the mix between light and dark, and struggle with having the light comprehend the dark and encapsulate it. Of course, Yoda's only able to do that during the Clone Wars in season 6 of the show, ultimately. And then, of course, as you quoted, Joel, he's, the same kind of, similar kind of view, right? With at least in Last Jedi, it's panning. Is that the right word? Panning, and the little ear comes into frame. Here, he kind of pans down, and the ears come into frame. But to say, the Jedi are always going to be mixed. They're never going to be fully the villains.
They can't be full light side either.
No, but that's the thing, is we've spent this whole season, all the Jedi are so corrupt and so repressing, internally repressive and potentially externally repressive, to say, okay, actually, let's be a bit more complex in that direction as well. And just a reminder, I mean, we're reading into this just this 1 second, 1 moment. Yeah, it is complicated, that the fact that they cover it up. And Yoda, maybe we're going to hopefully see in season 2, Yoda kind of somehow rationalize that. But also, even that, in that rationalization, to say, I mean, that's the thing. It's, well, the decline, again, the descent into, all the way to being the generals in a Clone War, because that's just what the Jedi do, right? Why not? But it also a reminder that, yes, in as much as they do it because of themselves, Palpatine is also using them, manipulating to do these things in spite of themselves, and in spite of, they could say, this is just the need in the moment. Why would we neglect, this separatist threat that may be oppressing people, and it's led by all these corporate interests? Well, we happen to have this army to they're just droids, and all these things, these justifications, and yeah, it's both because of themselves and in spite of themselves. And so Yoda embodying that complexity, um, even to the point of finally, as a Force ghost, being able to say, it's not about shying away from those failures. It's about seeing them as opportunities to pass on to the next generation what to do differently. Like Joel, like you said, a lot of this taken up then in the Rey movie about her looking back and saying, okay, what's having, and I hope Beaumont Kin is in there a little bit too, right? Having this sense of what was the history, what really happened, how do we evaluate this, what are our biases in the present given that history, what do we do now?
Right. Shoot, I had a point. Oh yeah. So now I remember.
Sorry, I said so much.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So two things kind of popped in my head when we were talking about Plagueis and Yoda. One, the Osha Chimera stuff kind of reminded me a little of the Maul Savage stuff from the Clone Wars. Obviously, different context, and we can have
similar kind of idea, right?
We got these kind of two not cis going around, and then ultimately Palpatine's got to put the kibosh back on him. And it kind of reminds me of that with May and Osha. Dang it, not May and Osha. Osha and Kaimi are gonna as Leslie said, hey, look, these two are looking all triumphant. They're gonna conquer the galaxy. And then obviously, Papa Plagueis got to come in and tell these kids, nah, you ain't Sith Lords. Papa Plagueis here to school you. In the dark side. So kind of, and then what would happen there with poor Maul. I feel like Chimera might suffer the same fate, or Osha. You never know. I mean, witches and all that. As for Yoda, I remember one of the earlier speculations, and it doesn't do this, but I feel like this might be the answer to the question. There's always been that curiosity of how did Yoda know about the rule of two? And then in Clone Wars, it's how did Yoda know about Darth Bane? I didn't know this. I thought this was a secret. Although there's been some kind of question now if in canon Bane is more of a public figure than he was in Legend. So there's always that answer. And I feel like this almost answers that question in that maybe during the cover-up of all of this, Yoda's the only one who knows. So it's he knows what Darth Bane is, even if no one else does, because he's just keeping this a secret.
Yeah, maybe.
But now we know Yoda keeps secrets. A lot of secrets, even High Republic secrets. Little white lies. Yeah. Even in the Living Force. But yeah. Any final thoughts on Yoda or Plagueis? Actually, do you want any thoughts?
I think the last thing I would say is that maybe he is still fighting the good fight insofar as he understands there needs to be balance in the Force. And so you got to maybe let some darkness run around and do its thing and try to minimize its impact as much as possible without, completely upsetting the balance of the Force, because you technically aren't allowed to go full light and keep that balance. So I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of, to your point, Matt, you were talking about justification all the time. Maybe that's the justification.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's if you try and stamp out the dark by using dark means, you're just I mean, that's kind of what happens, right? I love this line of this expression. I'm sure you guys have heard this. If the only tool you got is a hammer, then everything's a nail. And so to say, there's only so much we can do about the dark side. I mean, it's kind of where he seems almost in the Attack of the Clones. At the end of Attack of the Clones, he's kind of resigned a little bit. The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun the Clone War has. And it is a tragedy. But yeah, maybe to know that the limits of using, just trying to stamp it out, right? Like feeding into Rain Court's thing. Yeah, maybe. Interesting. Great point.
Tragedy. That is the word of the day.
It's not a mystery, it's a tragedy. It's a great point.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we're good, everybody. I think we did it. Any final thoughts on the episode? Ashley, you want to give a final thoughts on just the episode again, or what we talked about? Any last minute things?
I just need more Manny Jacinto and answers about Plagueis. That's what I need in my life.
Have you
So,
watched The
let's
Good
go.
Place?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
Nice.
kind of threw me off. So I
Yeah.
knew he was great, but now I'm
It's
like,
different.
he's hot. That's weird.
It's true. He's not really a hot character in The Good Place. He's from Vancouver, Canadian.
Oh, is
There
he?
you go.
No
Yeah,
way.
he's
Actually, I didn't know
Canadian.
that.
There you go. Fun times. All right, Joel, do you have any final thoughts too?
I think Hedlund did what she set out to do in terms of making the arc ending satisfying. I mean, there's certainly a lot to discover, especially stuff I really like, because me being the big Plagueis fan I am, and talk about an arc of going from the days when Lawrence Kasdan going Darth Vegas, who's that, to here's Plagueis, just as you thought he would look like when you read that book in 2012.
Yeah.
It's like, Hedlund is clearly one of us in all the best ways possible.
Yeah.
But obviously, not just about Plagueis, obviously, but, the arc has been finalized. May and Nosha are on the opposite sides. There's clearly more to tell. But in that kind of A New Hope way, it's still self-contained-ish enough that it's definitely a completed season.
Yeah.
At the very least.
There we go. It's hard to end a story. It really is. As sorry to say that J.J. Abrams learned the hard way, and it wasn't the first time he struggled with finishing a story. Yeah, it really is. And so to see Leslie, at least if it doesn't get renewed, it's gonna get renewed. If it doesn't get renewed,
hope it does.
yeah, there is at least we have Osha. This did the one thing it absolutely had to do, which was get Osha turn to the dark side in a convincing, satisfying way that we all follow and track with. And so that this episode definitely did that. But yeah, speaking of finishing episodes, 2.5 hours going long. Good point to wrap things up. So thanks everyone for hanging with us, chatting with us in the comments. We got a bit of comments there, but yeah, it's some good questions there. The comment boxes aren't going anywhere on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. Please do let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of the whole season, why you want it renewed, because you do, I'm guessing.
Renew the Acolyte.
Renew the Acolyte. What do you think of the Alex Segura comics news? It's that we said at the top about 2 hours ago. There you go. Sorry, we come sometimes go along here, but yeah, let us know in the comment boxes. Also, please do give this video a like and a share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Ash, it's always good to see you. Good to chat and great chat about Star Wars. Thanks for coming on. Where can they find you on the internet, especially your cosplay?
Yeah, I really only exist on one place on the internet because I am a boomer at heart, I guess. But it is.
I don't know if that's true.
I feel that.
I hope not. Maybe from an internet perspective, in that I'm limited. But I'm on Instagram at DefTheOnlyAshley. So that's where you can find me.
There we go. Yeah, definitely lots of good stuff. All Def. Oh, well, it's in the description below. It's in the notes in the description below. So don't worry. Yeah, check that out. There you go. Yeah, check out her. Lots of Ahsoka cosplay. A whole bunch of stuff there. Joel, another great conversation as always. Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID2021. Again, JID2021 on Twitter. At IonCanPod, EYEONCANONPOD at Twitter, and of course on the Star Wars Underworld Discord. We'll be having a game night this Friday, and we'll play whatever the heck we feel like. I'm not confining us to one game this time.
Vote now. We love democracy. Just chime in. What do you want to play? What do you want to play? Check that in the link. Yeah, and Joel, you're mostly in the Discord these days, right? At least
mostly on the Discord. I mean, you can always contact me with DMs on Twitter. But Discord's always the best way. Or Facebook. DM on Facebook or Discord are my two best.
There you go. Yeah. Again, if you join the Discord in the Anything Goes channel, tag him and ask him what his second favorite She-Ra episode is. go to the Venn diagram. That's the thing. I forgot to mention the Star Wars MLS Venn diagram.
Okay.
There's the connection there. I saw your New York City FC posts there. So we have a Venn diagram channel in the Discord talking about Euros, talking about the Olympics. The Olympics are coming up. I'm excited for that. So yeah, in the link down below. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, MNEUG1138, and Threads. Also, Instagram beaches.foodie. If you can say it again, at beaches.foodie, FOODIE. If you enjoy photos of ice cream and poutine and soon to be more fried chicken, I promise. So check that out on Instagram, Twitter, NEG45. Probably going to start tweeting about the Olympics a bit more, especially the Canadian women going for gold again, defend the crown in women's soccer. So yeah, check that out. But I tweet about Star Wars too. I tweet about other things. Please do check me out there. And then of course, yes, at Iron Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, and at the SWU. I don't quite know what's happening this week in terms of because of San Diego Comic-Con, but definitely check out. We'll definitely on social media. I know Ben and a bunch of them are going, so check out their coverage on all the Facebook and all the channels there. But yeah, for now, this has been a great episode, great run. Next week, as mentioned, season look back with another. We got one more guest, one more episode to go, and then I'm taking a break. But Joel's gonna hold it strong for 2 more weeks, and then I'll be back in September. I promise. But until then, Ashley, Joel, it's been fun. Let's blow this thing and head home.